Hey there. Ever wondered what happens when one real estate company is on both sides of a deal? You know, when the agent for the buyer and the agent for the seller work for the same boss? It sounds, well, kind of complicated, but it happens all the time. Okay, let's dive right into this.
So, picture this. You've been searching for months and you finally find it, the perfect house. You're so ready to make an offer. But then you find out that the brokerage firm your agent works for is the very same one that's listing the house. So, what now?
Yeah, this situation is called an in-house sale, and it creates an immediate potential conflict of interest. But don't you worry, there's a specific set of Texas laws built for this exact scenario. We're going to break down the rules of intermediary brokerage to show you how it's supposed to work and hopefully keep the deal fair for everybody involved. So, first things first, let's unpack why this is a conflict to begin with. The problem is baked right into the very different goals of the people in the transaction.
First up, on one side of the table, you've got seller Steve. His motivation is super simple: get the absolute highest price for his home that the market will possibly give him.
And on the other side? Well, that's buyer Chris, and his goal is the complete opposite. He wants that same exact home, but for the lowest possible price. Right away, you can see their interests are just fundamentally at odds.
Okay, so here's where it gets tricky. Agent Sue is fighting for seller Steve, and Agent Bill is fighting for buyer Chris. But, and this is the kicker, they both work for the same person, broker Bob. This means Bob's company has a legal duty to get the best deal for both of his clients, who want completely opposite things. See? That's the built-in conflict.
And this whole scenario, it has an official name, an in-house sale. It's just any transaction where one brokerage is representing both the person selling the home and the person buying it.
Now, you might be thinking this sounds pretty messy, and you'd be right. Historically, it really was. The system we have today in Texas was actually created to solve the problems of an older, way more confusing system.
Before the rules we have now, Texas used a system called dual agency. And let me tell you, it was a mess. It was based on decades of conflicting court decisions. Agents didn't really get it, and it created a ton of legal risk for brokers. It just wasn't working.
And you can see how the law evolved over time. Before 1993, it was kind of a confusing free-for-all. They tried to fix it in 93, but it was still flawed. The real game changer came in 1996 with Senate Bill 489, which created the intermediary process we have today. By 2005, this new system became mandatory, and the old dual agency model was officially gone for good in Texas.
So, that brings us to the solution Texas landed on, the intermediary. The best way to think of the broker in this situation isn't as a coach for one team, but more like a neutral referee for the whole game.
So officially, an intermediary is the broker who steps in to negotiate when their firm represents both sides. Their main job is simple: manage the deal fairly, without playing favorites with either client.
And look, this isn't optional. The Texas Real Estate License Act is crystal clear here. For a broker to act as an intermediary, they have to follow 3 mandatory steps. First, they've got to get written consent from both the buyer and the seller. Second, that consent form has to say where the commission money is coming from. And third, and this is crucial, the broker absolutely must act fairly and impartially. No exceptions.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get into the how. In the real world, this intermediary process plays out in 2 very different ways.
The first, and probably most common method, is called intermediary with appointments. In this case, the head broker, our broker Bob, appoints 2 different agents from his company to work one-on-one with the buyer and the seller.
Now, this is the key benefit of making appointments. The appointed agents, like Sue and Bill, are actually allowed to give their clients opinions and advice. They can actively coach them and negotiate on their behalf to get them the best deal possible, all while the main broker over them stays neutral.
But what if the agent who listed the home is also the agent who found the buyer? Well, in that case, we have our second scenario, intermediary without appointments. Here, just one single agent is in the middle of the deal, working with both sides.
And this is where the rules get incredibly strict. That one agent is legally forbidden from giving opinions or advice to either party. They can't suggest an offer price, they can't advise on negotiation tactics, they can't do anything that would favor one client. They basically just become a neutral facilitator whose only job is to manage the paperwork and communication to get the deal closed.
So let's just boil it down, side by side. With appointments, you get 2 separate agents, and your agent can give you advice. Without appointments, there's just one agent in the middle who legally cannot.
The most important takeaway for you is knowing if you'll have someone in your corner providing expert guidance during the most critical part, the negotiation.
All right, so that's all the legal stuff. But let's bring this back to what really matters. What does all this mean for you when you're out there buying or selling a home? Let's talk about your game plan.
This right here is a really important quote. It pinpoints the exact moment all these rules actually kick in. It's not when you're just looking at the house. The intermediary process officially starts the second the buyer decides they want to write an offer. That's the trigger.
So here are the absolute essentials you need to remember. First, you have to give written consent for any of this to happen, and it's often buried in the initial agreement you sign, so read that thing carefully. Second, if the broker is making appointments, you have to get a formal written notice saying who is appointed to you. Third, and this is the big one, remember that if no appointments are made, your agent's hands are tied. They can't give you negotiation advice. And finally, if you're ever even a little bit unsure, just ask your agent straight up, what is your role in this transaction?
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. The intermediary law, it's designed to create a fair and impartial process, which is good. But when you're negotiating one of the biggest financial deals of your life, is fairness from a neutral facilitator really what you need? Or do you need a dedicated advocate fighting exclusively for your best interests? It's definitely something to consider. Thanks for watching.